It is midweek. Good morning and welcome to your first news bulletin right here on TV3. We are coming to you live from our studios at Adesawe, Kanda. We are also streaming live on Facebook at TV3 Ghana. My name is Safwa Bwahine, and coming up this morning. Parliament approves Minister of State designate for Communications Sam George amidst disapproval by the majority, calling on him to apologize to former President Akufo-Addo. West Africa gas pipeline commences maintenance works, which is expected to reduce the supply of gas to Ghana's thermal plants. Leadership of the Teacher Trainees Association of Ghana expressed concern over government's decision to scrap the teacher trainee allowance. We have details of this and many more coming up shortly. Please do stay with us. Let's settle for the details now. Many thanks for joining us right here on TV3. Now to our first story. The Minister-designate for Communications, Technology and Digital Innovation, Sam George, has been approved by majority consensus in Parliament after the minority abstained from his approval. The minority was on the view that the nominee refused to apologize to the Chief Justice and former President Akufo-Addo, whom he had accused of bias and corruption respectively, a position the minority did not take kindly to. After several hours of deliberation, the House, by majority decision, approved the nominee, including Abdul Rashid Pelpo as Minister for Labour, Jobs and Employment, Murtala Mohammed, Minister for Environment, Science and Technology, Kofi Adams as Minister for Sports and Recreation, and Joseph Bukari, who is for Transport Minister. The remaining nominees, including Foreign Affairs Minister Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, were also approved, although the minority abstained from his approval. Let's still remain in Parliament because Speaker of Parliament Alban Bagbin has lifted the suspension on 4 members of Parliament following a bipartisan appeal from both the majority and minority caucuses. Alban Bagbin on Friday announced emergency measures to address the vetting chaos which took place on Thursday, January 30. Meanwhile, both investigations sanctioned into the incident will continue.
It started with a chant. Members of the minority clad in black and red protested the suspension of their colleagues. They entered the chamber at last, but faced yet another resistance. Access was blocked, leaving them dissatisfied.
When the committee brings the report of those that were vetted, we will exercise our minds to it. We do understand that some persons were vetted by the dissolved committee. We are not sure that that amounts to vetting. When it gets there, we'll address it.
After entering the chamber, there was a bipartisan appeal from both sides that the Speaker rescinds his decision.
I will therefore conclude by inviting you, Mr. Speaker, to, in the circumstance and with assurances given, to consider a rescission of the decision you communicated to the House.
If in the process there have been some incidents, they are regrettable. And so, Mr. Speaker, I will support the appeal of my colleague, the minority leader, that you temper justice with mercy. I agree that your decision to suspend some colleagues was timely, and I believe that it has been understood by the generality of Ghanaians as a step that restored the image of this parliament.
The Speaker of Parliament, in his remarks, granted the request but urged members to be orderly.
Yes, as a father, when your son commits an offense, you don't punish the son to the extent that you break his or her leg. That becomes a big problem for you, the father. And I will proceed to lift the suspension of the 4 members of Parliament that I considered were involved in disorderly conduct which amounted to contempt.
He further condemned the attacks on the clerk to the appointment committee.
Any displeasure by a member on the date, hour, or business for consideration at a committee ought to properly be directed at the chair and not the clerk to the committee, who is duty-bound under the state order to transmit notices and to organize them. While I advise members to use only the laid-down hierarchy and procedures to resolve any grievance that may arise in relation to an officer or a department of the service, I also call on the chairs of the committees to, as a matter of urgency, ensure a strict adherence to the standing orders of Parliament and to maintain law and order at committee meetings.
Despite the reinstatement of the 4 MPs, both parliamentary and criminal investigations into the vetting chaos will continue. The special committee probing the chaos has already announced that it will commence public hearings into the chaos on Wednesday, February 5th, 2025. Christian Yale, TV3 News, Parliament House.
Away from Parliament now, the West African Gas Pipeline Company Limited, owner and operator of the West African Gas Pipeline, is scheduled to undertake major pipeline maintenance activities from today, February 5 to March 2, 2025. These activities include the pigging and the inline inspection of the 569 kilometers of shore pipeline infrastructure from Lagos State, Nigeria to Takoradi, Western Region, Ghana, and replacement of critical subsea valves at Tema and Cotonou to enhance operational safety. This maintenance project will necessitate the temporary suspension of specific services. However, some gas transportation services from Nigeria to Takoradi in Ghana will continue during this period to ensure the successful execution of the pipeline cleaning and inspection activities. WAPCO is mandated to conduct these inspections every 5 years or on a risk-based schedule as part of its commitment to maintaining the integrity of the West African gas pipeline and ensuring its safe and reliable operation across the West African region. WAPCO is grateful to the governments of Benin, Ghana, Nigeria, and Togo for their ongoing support. Can't hear. Well, meanwhile, Minister Designate for Government, Communications, Felix Kwachi Ofosu says parcels of fuel have been procured in the country in view of the maintenance exercise. This also averts earlier fears of a power outage if the pipeline maintenance had been undertaken without adequate fuel supply. He spoke on the key points last month.
Just like they did with the fuel situation, the power situation, where they refused to purchase adequate supplies of fuel for us to mitigate the problems that were going to occur because of the West African gas pipeline closure. They did the same. On the first day, when we met the energy sector players, they were told, the meeting started at 10 a.m. They were told that by 4 p.m. that day, they must bring government a proposal to address the difficulty. And indeed, by 4 p.m., they had brought us the proposal. It means that there is quality human resource in the ministries, departments, and agencies. It's about giving them the right kind of motivation and unleashing their potential. I sat in that meeting.
I see.
And I have some energy background, so I understood the issues. But I was amazed about the quality of discussion and how quickly they were able to cobble up a plan together to ensure that, and indeed, it is that plan that we've been implementing. And thus far, as I speak to you,
by the technocrats,
technocrats with supervision from the energy minister designated, the finance minister designated, and myself to oversee communication around the matter. And it is that plan that they brought us that is helping resolve the problem. As I speak to you, parcels of fuel have landed, they've been discharged, more is on its way. So the immediate threat that we face has been averted. Unless something catastrophic happens further down the line, we've averted that. But
let's still bring you some more stories where the Gold for Oil policy, an initiative that exchanges gold for petroleum products, is to be reviewed to help stabilize fuel availability across the country. The Minister for Energy and Green Transition, Dr. John Abdullahi Jonapor, hinted the move when he met stakeholders in the downstream petroleum sector to discuss ways to refine capacities within Ghana's petroleum hub.
Ghana's downstream petroleum subsector is growing and getting more competitive by the day. However, challenges such as security of supply, loading and transporting petroleum products for excess use, unbalanced policies, shortage and smuggling of fuel underpin the operation of the sector.
Our only request will be the protection of our investment. Some time back, we were made to invest within the Tama enclave. We were made to construct pipelines to pass through TOR to ensure that there are no pipelines crisscrossing. But here we are at times that you wake up one morning without even recourse to the regulator. TOR will raise a new bill that they will invoice you, that throughput fee is this. These are some of the things that we want the sector minister to look at.
In his series of engagements with sector agencies in the downstream petroleum sector, the Minister for Energy and Green Transition, Dr. John Abdullahi Jonapor, said consultations are ongoing to ensure fair policies and right operational standards are instituted, as the Gold for Oil policy is also being reviewed.
How can we ensure that we're able to address your forest challenges in a more transparent manner? We're also reviewing the Gold for Oil program, as we promised in our manifesto. And already the Minister of Finance is working on the gold aspect. He intends to set up what he describes as a gold board. On our side too, we are reviewing it. And so if you see some work, it's just an interim arrangement. You can't truncate the process until you have a workable solution.
As at 2024, the downstream petroleum sector contributed over 19 billion Ghana cedis to the taxes. The chief executive of the Chamber of Oil Marketing Companies, Dr. Reverson Opon, said despite the importance of the sector, stakeholder challenges like bureaucratic system at GRA and NPA delayed your operations, leading to losses.
We've had constant disruption of ICOMS system, which we issued a letter, notice last week to GRA and the ICOMS operator. That leads to loading challenges, and we are hoping that the ministry will intervene in collaboration with NPA especially, and also BOST, since we are also handling some of the depots.
Representatives from sector agencies, including Tankers Owners and Drivers Associations and the Ghana Chamber of Bulk Oil Distribution, urged the sector minister to strive to ensure that there is a high level of local participation in the petroleum industry. Ekio Friwa Dako, TV3 News.
Let's take you to the education sector now, where leadership of the Teacher Trainees Association of Ghana have expressed concern over government's decision to scrap the teacher trainee allowance. It cited the need to transition to the student loan scheme, but many trainees are worried about the implications of this decision on their education in future careers. Judith Brown reports.
Minister of Education, Haruna Idrisu, has reviewed plans to transition teacher trainee allowances into an enhanced student loan scheme. This move aims to enable students to cater for their own feeding and personal expenses. The subject of trainee allowances has been controversial for the two main parties in the last couple of years. Despite being scrapped by the previous NDC government, the MPP government restored it, but it appears the current NDC government wants to approach the issue differently. According to the minister, the allowance system will be phased out gradually, with the student loan scheme operating in parallel for a short period. This, according to him, will give students the option to choose before the full transition takes place. Speaking to leadership of the Conference of Principals of Colleges of Education, the minister argued all tertiary institutions must be brought to the same level.
we can narrow feeding to basic and to free senior high school, but at the tertiary level, so they will still get enhanced student loans to be able to feed themselves. But in the interim, we will continue with the feeding and then phase out the allowance process, subject to the recommendations of the Education Forum.
The decision has sparked mixed reactions from teacher trainees with concerns about the financial implications.
Teacher trainee allowance is the last thing we would want to be cancelled as students, because the idea or the brain behind the reintroduction of the teacher training allowances in 2017 are something that is good, and then something that we should encourage. And then even more so, we should be looking at increasing the teacher training allowance from the amount that it is, so as to be able to make the feeding in the colleges of education better, and equally help students to be able to purchase their reading and learning resources, and equally encourage them to join the colleges of education.
Executive Secretary of the Institute of Education Studies, Dr. Peter Partianti, however, says the decision is in the right direction.
I think it's the communication that will go with it. I think that we should let the students understand that it is not feasible, it is not economically efficient to continue to pay them the allowances. It is therefore important that even as the government is taking this step, they streamline the operations of the loan trust fund to ensure that these monies are released weeks before the reopening.
The minister also acknowledged the infrastructural and logistical challenges facing colleges of education, promising to address these concerns despite budgetary constraints. The latest development has sparked a national conversation about the future of teacher education in Ghana. But as the government moves forward with its plans, one thing is clear: the impact on teacher trainees and the education sector as a whole will be significant. Judith Brown, TV3 News.
Now let's bring you our last story, which is actually a very disturbing one. A 4-month-old baby has been burnt to death at Kisiman near Achimota in a Wednesday dawn fire outbreak. Scores of apartments and shops also razed by the fire. Personnel from the Ghana National Fire Services have been struggling to contain the fire due to the highly combustible materials involved. That will be all for the morning news right here on TV3. Many thanks for joining us. My name is Safwa Bwahini. New Day continues right after this break. Do have a lovely day.
Happy New Year from all of us at 3FM 92.7. We're grateful for your support over the years and can't wait to achieve even more together in 2025. To kick off the year, we're bringing you 3FM Fit Start, a transformative 60-day program designed to get your team fit, energized, and motivated for success. Health is wealth, and we know that healthy, motivated staff are the heartbeat of any successful business. That's why 3FM Fit Start